Okay, good morning, guys. It's Tuesday, the 19th of January. Hope you had a good day yesterday. Focusing on suspense writing this week. So, we're going to start our SPAG warm up activity by again just sort of recapping on clauses. And what I'd like you to do this morning is to shorten a sentence. Okay, so sentences have got two clauses, and I'd like you to shorten them into two short sentences. So we'll have a look at the first one. She rowed and rowed towards the island until finally she collapsed over the oars. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, that is obviously one whole sentence. I'd like you to take that sentence and create two short sentences from that, and they have both got to make sense by themselves. So you need to remove maybe one or two words, and obviously you're going to need to use two full stops and two capital letters when you do this. Okay, so read through them. Okay, pause the video, have a go, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, welcome back. So hopefully you've had a go at those three sentences. I'll flick the answers up. So the first one, she rowed and rowed towards the island. Finally, she collapsed over the oars. Okay, so we've created two sentences from that one long sentence. Okay, so second one, there was no sign of land now. A creeping fear began to seep into her mind. Okay, Zoe used to see her when the supply ships came. They stopped coming. So we're creating kind of a little bit more suspense by using shorter sentences there. Okay, good. So we're going to crack on, and we're going to read chapter 2, and you'll find that in the resources if you want to read along or print it out. So have a look at that today. And it starts with an image, an etching of this picture here. So I don't know what you make of that. Just have a little think. What do you think that is a picture of? Can you work out anything by looking at that? Okay, fab. Now I think that looks like a road sign to me, and I can see it's something Bridge 27. There are some letters that seem to be submerged or under the water. Now the first one, it looks a bit like it might be a C, so I'm guessing that that whole street sign says Cambridge 27, which might mean that it's 27 miles away. Now usually when we see street signs, they're quite high up, so it tells you that the water has risen. Okay, so we're going to read chapter 2. I want you to think about, is it focusing on the past, the present, or the future, or maybe all three? Okay, so chapter 2 of our book. After the water came, Zoe and her parents had tried for years to stick it out on Norwich, along with another 100 or so. After a while, they realised they were fighting a losing battle and that the sea was not going to stop rising. Zoe's mum was ill too. She seemed to have a sickness that came and went and had lasted for weeks. They'd had enough. Back then, there were still fairly regular supply trips from the mainland. A big ship used to bring as much food as could be spared and anchor half a mile offshore. After rowing in with the supplies and sharing them out, the captain would ask if anyone wanted to leave. Usually there would be one or two more people ready to go on to the mainland. But just when Zoe's parents had decided to get off the island, the boat stopped coming. Instead of the usual 4 or 6 weeks, 3 months went by before it reappeared. Finally, it slipped into view late one night, as if the captain knew there would be trouble. By now, a lot more people than usual wanted to get off the island. There was confusion. It was dark, and a terrible fight broke out to get aboard the 2 tiny rowing boats. Zoe helped her dad to get her mum on board one of the boats, just as it was pulling away from the shore. It was already dangerously overloaded. 2 men were trying to push each other out of the boat, even as the oarsman took his first strokes. One of them succeeded in shoving the other out. There was only enough time and room for Zoe, or her dad, to jump in. She saw her dad hesitate. She had never seen that before. He always seemed to know what to do. She could see him torn between getting in the boat with his sick wife or putting his daughter in with her. Zoe looked at the other boat. There was still a little room to be had. She decided to help her dad, to make the decision for him. "You go with Mum. She needs you," she yelled. "No," said her dad. "I'll get in the other one." She pointed. "I'll see you on board the ship." "No," he said. "You get in the boat." Then the oarsman noticed them. "Only one of you," he shouted. "And make it quick. The ship's already full. We're leaving." He started to pull hard now. "Dad, it's only as far as the ship. I'll see you there." Still he hesitated. Zoe forced her decision. She backed away from the boat. "I'm going for the other one. Get on board. Dad, quick." She saw the relief in her dad's face as he climbed aboard from waist-deep water. "Zoe!" "Well, go then," he shouted. "Get in the other boat. Hurry, Zoe." Zoe turned and saw with horror that the other boat was already leaving. More people were arriving from the town too, sensing that this could be the last chance to get away. They headed for the boat that Zoe was making for. She ran across the slimy, muddy shore and tried to climb in over the stern of the boat. Then someone hit her on the chin. She fell back dazed in the mud and watched as the boats moved away towards the lights of the ship. Suddenly she realised that she was being left behind. Her dad thought she was on the second rowing boat, that he would see her on the ship. She knew the captain wouldn't come back for her. With all these people, there would only be another fight. She had to let her dad know now, before the rowing boats reached the ship. She tried to shout, but her voice was weak with exhaustion. Then she thought she heard her dad call to her. "Zoe, are you there?" came his voice through the dark. "Dad, I'm here. Come back. Get them to come back. Please." She thought she was yelling, but in reality she could only manage a whisper. There and then a numbness came to her. Her brain closed in on itself, blocking out the full impact of what had happened. She blacked out, the sea lapping at her legs. That was a long time ago, though she had no idea whether it was 6 months or even a year. It was impossible to tell. She hadn't thought to mark the days, and the weather was so weird you couldn't even be sure what season it was. After waiting a long time for her parents to come looking for her, she began to lose hope. There was no way off, and the supply ship never came again. She guessed life was getting harder, even on the mainland. She had been sure her parents would come and find her, but maybe they couldn't get a boat, or maybe they'd never even... She pushed that idea from her mind, as always, but it didn't change the fact that she was stuck. Then she had found the boat. She rowed and rowed, getting weaker all the time, until finally she collapsed over the oars, exhausted. The boat drifted. When she woke, it was dawn. "Damn!" she yelled, for the whole wide sea to hear. Once again she fought to stop the panic rising inside. I could be anywhere. She checked the compass against the direction she was drifting in. Southwest. Could be worse. Even so, there was no sign of any land in any direction. But then, turning on the thwart, she saw it for the first time. She opened her mouth in surprise, but said nothing. Far away on the horizon was a massive, ancient stone building. It had two tall towers that stuck into the sky, one at the end and another shorter one in the middle. She couldn't see that there was any land underneath it, and it looked as if it was floating on the sea. Turning back in her seat, she put her head down and started to row towards the floating cathedral. It would be somewhere to stop for a while, at least. She needed to sleep and to find some food and water. Maybe she could find out where she was, so she would know which way to go on. Perhaps the ship that took her parents away had stopped here too. Someone might have seen them, but then it looked to be only a little island. Zoe thought there probably wouldn't be anyone left on it. She was wrong. Okay, so interesting chapter 2, lots to be going on with there. So what was the focus on? Did we learn more about her past, about her present situation? And possibly we can only predict what her future might be. And that's what we're going to be doing this lesson. So our skill is to predict what will happen next. Okay, so talk about the things that you might have found out in that last chapter. Can you pick out any moments where the tension built? Okay, we also found out about her present state and how she is feeling now. So what about her future exactly? So pause the video, have a chat with someone, or you might want to write down your notes. What do you think? Pause the video now. Okay, good. So what is going to happen next? That is the big question mark. Then ... Okay, we know that she is not going to be alone. So we have to predict what will happen to her. Here's that moment where she looks behind her and she sees this huge ancient building. Okay, far away on the horizon was a massive ancient stone building. It had two towers that stuck into the sky. She couldn't see that there was any land underneath it, and it looked as if it was floating on the sea. So she's looking at a huge cathedral. So try and think now, whether you're in the bubble or at home, what might happen next as she approaches the shore, as she approaches the building. So are any of your ideas based upon events from her past? So think carefully about possibly what she's searching for. We know that she will not be alone. Okay, now think about the features in your toolkit from yesterday. You can have a look back at your toolkit and use the 5 W's, your what, who, where, when, why, to help you shape your ideas. Keep asking that question, what if? Okay, so what is she going to discover on this floating island? Okay, now we know it's actually not floating, but in her mind it appears to be. Okay, so today's lesson, you're going to predict what will happen next. Try and think of at least 5 things and give reasons why this would develop the story and make it interesting. So you could just write down these ideas that you've got. Okay, nothing's going to be wrong. So just play with your ideas. What would make it interesting? How would you develop that story? You could introduce new characters and settings. You might think of how to create new moments of suspense. So she finds a set of fresh footprints on the shore. What does this mean? Okay, who do they belong to? Has somebody watched her boat from afar? They might be animal prints. Let's see if we can get our computer to work. They might even be animal prints. Okay, how big are they? What does this tell you about this island? Is it a dangerous place, or is it a place of safety where she can maybe relax, find supplies, where she can rest? Okay, so it's up to you. Make your observations, your ideas, write them down. See if you can think of at least 5. Okay, excellent. Right. If you want to go back and look at that chapter in closer detail, then it will be on the resources. Okay, so good luck with that, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheerio.